Welcome to my humble abode. I am Yorkie the Talespinner, and this is Tales Over Coffee, our morning show where we start the day together with a cup of coffee and a narrative tale in the hopes of welcoming a blessed day. And this is the continuing tale of Anton Rain's failing presidency of Sordland. Suzerain. Let's go. Chapter 3, Victim of Changes. Yes. We've already lost the bid to change the Constitution. We were rather set up. Unfortunately. Anyway. Sadly, I think this is also going to empower our enemies, and probably the rest of the presidency is going to be rather neutered. We'll have to see, won't we? Let me just turn this up a little. Right. Meeting on the results for the assembly vote. Lucian, Petra, and I met in my office and decided to move out onto the balcony to get some fresh air. They both looked uncomfortable in their suits. Petra was trying not to make eye contact. I'm pretty sure Petra set me up and kept letting out depressed sighs. He wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. I still can't believe we lost by one vote. It was all Mrs. Tory's doing. It could have been, but I rather suspect Petra had a hand in it. I could be wrong there, said Lucian. She changed the threshold, that bitch, said Petra. Actually, she didn't. It was already written that way. She merely used her authority as speaker. It was a valid interpretation of the Constitution, said Lucian. There were more than 250 members present. With a single vote, the ghost of the past has once again kept our nation from achieving progress. Yeah, what the hell was all that about? Sol appearing out of nowhere? Asked Petra. You tell me, Petra. What's done is done. Let's not linger in the past. You're right, sir, said Lucian. We must plan ahead now. We'll be organising a cabinet meeting to discuss our present and future state of affairs. I will also try and test the waters with our MPs. We can't let the party slip out of our grasp. I want a list of every party member who voted against the proposal. It'd be good to know who to watch. Sir, it was a secret ballot. I don't care, I want names. Of course, sir, I'll do what I can. Don't worry, sir, we'll address the party soon enough and put them in the proper place. Lucian looked at his watch. I think it's time to conclude our little meeting, sir. There was a tap on my shoulder. Olivia Suno had joined us on the balcony. Pardon the interruption, gentlemen, said Olivia. Mr. President, David Visky is calling about the upcoming foreign policy meeting. Tell him I'll be right there. I will, sir. She turned and left the balcony, then back to us. My condolences for the vote results, Mr. Rain, Petra. She looked Petra in the eye as she said this, ignored Lucian altogether. Petra's eyes followed her as she walked out. Getting pretty hot out here. Petra, you're a sleazeball. Did someone have something on you and that's why you turned? There's been nothing said to prove that he has, but I'm pretty sure from some of the rumours we've heard that this is not a guy who supports us. Okay, let's call it finished. You may both go. All right, gentlemen. See you later, said Lucian. They both left. Our budget is in the toilet. We have invitation to a movie premiere. And we have, let's see, USP meeting criticises president. That's no surprise. In yesterday's internal USB meeting, a large group of party members voiced their disappointment in the failed constitutional vote in the Assembly. Lilius Graf criticised President Rain for pursuing change without in-depth research and proper communication between party members, blaming the President and the Vice President for failure. I guess the book does stop here. But again, I suspect we were set up. A high-level agent has escaped from Rumberg and seeks refuge in Sordland. A whistleblower from Rumberg Security Bureau has escaped Sordland by crossing the border and turning himself to the authorities in Estord. Agent Charleston Hailstone, what's her name, has promised to reveal extremely sensitive information about the development of a weapons program. We can give refuge to him and risk antagonizing Rumberg or send him back. Come to us. News. Geopolitical. Sordland accepts whistleblower. Who is Charleston Hailstone and what does he know? That's the question of the day, as President Rain has agreed to grant refuge to this rogue national security agent from Rumberg. After escaping Sordland, Hailstone promised to reveal sensitive government information in exchange for asylum. Whether Rain's decision will be worth the anger and possible retaliation from Rumberg governments that remains to be seen. They're already a danger, so... Read the report from Antel, whistleblower in safe house. After receiving Agent Charleston Hailstone, we secretly transferred him to a safe house near Antel. The perimeter is guarded by Special Forces units to ensure no escape or rescue attempt can be conducted by Rumberg intelligence. The agent is currently being interrogated thoroughly to make sure that the preliminary information provided is accurate. An invitation to a movie premiere. I'd been invited to an exclusive preview of Alfred Kerbuck's new film, The Morning Shall Come. Although I wasn't much of a movie-going mood, it would have been unpresidential not to attend. With its massive budget and Kerbuck's... What are you talking about, Kubrick here? Directorial cachet, this drama was set to be a milestone for Sordland's burgeoning film industry. Personally, though, I was just looking forward to spending time with my family. It was very hot and sunny day as Serge drove us to the old capital. The film was to be screened in the historic Cinema Anglais de Arlery, the very first cinema in Sordland. Serge had maxed out the air conditioning to keep the Cadillac comfortable. I kept silent through most of our ride to on the H1. Couldn't get my mind off the results of the assembly vote. Frank fidgeted with his tyres as he stared out of the window. What's wrong, Frank? I'm not going to assume. Since when do you care what's happening in my life? I've been busy lately, but I'll always have time for you. Busy with failure? Frank, don't talk to your father that way. He tried his best. I don't want to do... This is one of the things that is turning me off of the game. I don't want to do either of those, and it's not giving me a reasonable alternative. I'm not looking to ignore him or threaten him. I'd rather accept, yes, the assembly vote didn't go our way. Sometimes you must work, face failure, and pick up and carry on. Turn it into a lesson. Turn it into supportive and acknowledging his views, and encourage him to face his own challenges. That's not even a remote possibility from those choices. Other situations like either having to go hard-ass all over immigration or soft all over immigration are similar. They don't give you reasonable choices, and I'm being turned off of the game because of this. Turn to Diana. Are you having a good time? Diana nodded happily. What about you, Papa? I know you're sad, but failure helps us grow, right? I don't think I was looking to say. Exactly. Now, where did you learn that? Diana giggled. From you. Touché. Now, no more politics talk, isn't that right, Monica? You've been awfully quiet, Monica. I just want to focus on having a nice time at the movies. Monica folded her arms. We drove in silence. You're pissed off, Monica. You think I can't see that? Serge rolled down the soundproof glass between us. Sir, we're about to enter early. We'll be at the cinema in a few minutes. Thank you, Serge. I took a brief look outside as Serge rolled the soundproof glass up again. I could see the many towers of Ellery rising over what was left of the old city walls. In the distance there were several planes flying toward the city. As he got close to us, I saw that they were military planes that looked like Arcasian designs. They were probably headed for our new joint military base. Serge knocked on the glass and gestured forward. We're at the main square of Ullery and the historic Cinema Anglais, the Cinema of Angels, was right in front of us. Is this the place? Asked Diana. Yeah, said Frank. It was an old Baroque-style corner building with walls that looked like marble from a distance. There were exquisite ornaments on each side of the window, or every window. Serge pulled the car to the entrance of the building, which was lit by vivid neon stripes in many colours. On the wall next to the entrance, there were painted the words, "Stop the oppression of bloods." Come on, let's get out. Serge opened the doors and we exited onto the red carpet. We were just about to enter the building when a journalist managed to block the path. Mr. President, said the reporter. How are you handling the defeat of your constitutional reforms in the Assembly? I'm not going to surrender. Not very well. Yeah, it's honest, but no. I'm going to keep fighting for my changes. This isn't over yet. Thank you, Mr. President. And were you aware that Tarquin Sol would be present at the proceedings? No comment. Before she could ask anything else, the guards ushered us inside the theatre. In contrast with cinemas, but I would have phrased it as I won't make a comment on that rather than I refuse to talk. In contrast with the cinema's Baroque-style exterior, the inside was modern and sleek, with bare walls painted in black, red and white. The film's cast and crew were already in the foyer, with glasses of champagne in their hands. We approached the crowd and were welcomed by the producers and the event organisers. A man walked up to us with quick steps. Madame, Mr. President, it's good to see you here. He gently bowed at Monica and shook her hand. It's an honour to meet you. I'm Alfred Kerbuck. Honour is mine, Mr. Kerbuck. I'm a big fan of your work. Frank snorted. I glanced at him and he innocently took a sip of his cola. It's very humbling to know that you've been watching and enjoying my movies. If you don't mind me asking, which one was your favourite? This one may be slightly different than my previous works. That's mean, because the president would know which of these is his movie, but I don't know. One of those may not be his movie. All of them are my favourites. He laughed. You flatter me too much, Mr. President. I myself know they aren't all winners. Come now, just pick one. Sordid Street. Oh really? Then you might enjoy this one too. I'll admit I didn't expect you to be such a cinephile. Looks like I chose well. Frank looked me in the eye and struggled not to laugh. Why don't we take our seats? It's about to start, said Monica. We entered the screening room. The lights dimmed, and the film began. It was a period drama set in the 1870s about a sordid soldier who pursues a doomed romance with a widowed bloodish farmer during a conquest of Bergia. I wondered briefly if Kerbuck was commenting on my own treatment of the bloodish people, but then he had finished filming long before I became president. Excuse me, coughing. As the credits rolled, I made an early exit to use the men's room, washing my hands when I heard an unmistakable voice behind me. So what did you think? Tarquin Sol leaned against his cane. He had the same frail appearance I'd noticed at the assembly meeting, yet up close I could still sense the raw magnetism that had kept him in power for 20 years. Plot questionable, complete and utter drivel. Plot questionable, but it certainly looks spectacular. What about you yourself? Sentimental pablum for the enjoyment of housewives only, and for a period piece, the script contained far too many anachronisms. Indubitably. What the hell were you doing at the assembly, Mr. Sol? Were you at the assembly? My country was about to make a rash decision I simply couldn't stick by. And you're pleased with the outcome? Quite. There was a glint in his eye. A true president knows when he should step down. A lesson you'd be wise to learn yourself. I will not let you and that bleeding heart idiot Richter tarnish my precious constitution. You tarnish enough for the both of us already. Ah. Oh, the spittle landed on my cheek. As if you, Anton Rain, are above it all. As if you're capable of remaining president without getting your hands dirty. I'm no saint, but I'm trying to act for the good of the country. You'll find out soon enough how your country repays you for your goodness. He slipped past me and out the door. Sadly, there's an element of truth to that. Saul's security staff and mine were now clustered around the washroom, forming a buffer against the large crowd that had gathered. Tarquin Saul, I heard someone scream. His guards closed round him and mine round me. By the time the chaos subsided, I was back in the car with my family, and Saul was long gone. 7 news articles. Interesting. Let's see what they're saying, shall we? 2 from the Whole Sword Post. Rain and Saul meet at Kerbuck screening. The recent exclusive screening of Alfred Kerbuck's new film, The Morning Shall Come, was attended by an unexpected guest, former President Tarquin Saul, rarely seen outside of his home on Doodle Island since his 1949 resignation. Current President Anton Rain was also in attendance. The 2 men were seen together. New law on Sordland language vetoed. The Unified Language Act has been vetoed by President Rain after the approval of the Grand National Assembly by majority vote on Thursday, following a 3-hour debate. Suzerain, who campaigned heavily for the bill, criticised President Rain for his decision to veto the act, saying it contained many vital new rules that would have unified Swordish education and protect the integrity of Swordish language and identity. Sordland today, Rains keep fighting for reforms following Assembly defeat. Despite the Grand National Assembly voting down his planned constitutional reforms, President Anton Rain declared he would keep fighting for changes he had proposed. Speaking outside the historic cinema in Gley in Ullery, ahead of exclusive preview of Alfred Kerbuck's new film, Rain. It was Stanley Kubrick, wasn't it? Alfred Hitchcock. They're basically combining directors. Nicely done. Rain did not provide any details as to how he would challenge the Assembly's final decision, merely stating this isn't over yet. 2 from the Lockhaven Times. Peaceful protests. Waves of protesters are pouring out onto the streets in the country, asking for their rights as citizens of Sordland. Such demonstrations are the result of piled-up resentment over past budget decisions, bills and reforms. Fortunately, it seems the situation is not as bad, as they remain mostly peaceful. 1 film, 2 very special guests. An exclusive screening of Alfred Kerbuck's new film, The Morning Shall Come, had made a splash, but not for the content of the period drama itself. Instead, the film was overshadowed by 2 political figures in attendance, President Anton Rain, who made the trip from Holsword with his family, and former President Tarquin Saul, barely seen on the mainland since 1949. It is rumoured the 2 of them spoke in the washroom following the film. Washroom Summit. What are Rain and Saul hiding? We love you, Radical. At the screening of Alfred Kerbuck's overblown sob story, The Morning Shall Come, President Anton Rain and former President Tarquin Saul were seen exiting the men's room together, while an illicit assignation is not out of the question. Oh, we love you, Radical. Don't change. Don't ever change. It is far more likely the 2 inveterate politicians were making backroom deals about which Swordish public, as usual, will be kept in the dark. The Radical is committed to getting to the bottom of this meeting and will keep readers updated as the facts emerge. Rain vetoes racist language bill. It's the least he could have done. Anton Rain struck down a proposal from NFP's Casero Kibner and would have made Swordish the only language allowed in the country's educational institutions, with rare individual exceptions be granted by the Ministry of Education. Presented as a measure to promote integration and unity, the bill was a slap in the face to Sordland's Bloodish population and other non-Swordish speakers. Not to mention an outright denial of the diversity that makes this country what it is. Kibner must not be happy about this, but we are. Moving on. We'll return to Hallsword in a bit. Let's have a look at Dire. Ceremonial duty for the Day of Dissension. And Sanctuary of Dastrunity. Morning haze surrounded the city of Dire as the sun dawned on the Day of Dissension, the holiest day of the Neurity religion. It celebrated the first message received from God by St. Dast and his 30 disciples. As per tradition, the celebration was held inside the Arch Sanctuary of Dastrunity, closed to the public eye. This year, however, for the first time, it was going to be televised. This was Lucian's idea, as he saw it, granting the people a rare glimpse of the grand ceremony and showing them how seriously their president took this holy event would ease any tensions that lingered in the region. And so we arrived at the largest cathedral in Sordland. I honestly don't think this is really something the president should be doing. I am a proponent of the separation of church powers and state powers. A huge crowd gathered around our convoy as the car pulled up to the entrance. "This will work out, trust me, sir," said Lucian. "Of course, that's only if the prayer is done completely correctly. Please don't forget the order. First, you will need to grasp the holy scepter with your left hand, then touch the altar with your right. Kneel before the archpriest and wait for him to put the sword on your shoulder. Then touch the sword with the hand you touched the altar with, so that's the right hand, over the archpriest, and receive the sword before passing it on to a disciple." Needlessly complex. This is straightforward, isn't it? I didn't understand a word of what you just said. Just do your best to remember it. We can't afford to lose our religious base over this. Yeah, we might be doing that. You will have to go first. I will come inside later and we will meet up after your party's done. Good luck, sir. I exited the car and I was greeted by a chorus of cheers and camera flashes. I waved to the people as I made my way to the grand gates. The Arch Sanctuary was a sight to see. With its towering visage, it cast a shadow over the large proportion of the city. I had to crane my neck to see the narrow spires at the top. Just standing next to it made me feel awe and dread in equal measure. This is going to go badly. I can't scroll back to remind myself. As I reached the gates, I spotted my welcoming committee. The archpriest and his disciples were waiting for my arrival. At my approach, they all bowed their heads in respect. The archpriest gave me an infectious smile as he straightened back up. Tall and handsome, in his mid-50s, he was one of the youngest and most popular archpriests in history. Some of these more avid followers even likened him to St. Dast. "Mr. President, praise God, it is a blessing to see you on our most holy day. Welcome, welcome." Bow your head. The crowd was still cheering loudly. The archpriest turned and raised both of his hands, and everyone immediately fell silent. "O great people of Sordland, once again we are gathered here for another day of dissension. I am incredibly happy to be sharing this moment with you, as well as every blood and sword, old and young, tuning in to their television to watch this holy commemoration. Along with the leader of our great nation, I say, let this holy day begin. Stay far from evil, O sons and daughters, for evil hides itself under many disguises such as blasphemy, apostasy, and even alcohol. Be good, my children. Praise God, praise Sordland." He smiled beatifically as the crowd burst into the rapturous applause. After it ended, he turned to me. "You'll move inside for your confession." Nobody mentioned a confession. Yes, just like last year, every man must confess before the holy ceremony starts. He led me through the main hall, which had a stratospheric ceiling, and Neurist icons lined the walls. We walked up to a creaking spiral staircase to the top floor, and finally arrived in front of the confession chamber. "Right this way." He gestured toward the chair in the dark room. The room smelled of old mahogany and scented candles. The archpriest proceeded to light each and every one of the candles, one of each virtue and vice. "I will be right with you." He left the room. A minute later, I heard the sound of a sliding window next to me. Spoke with a very soft voice. Anton Rain, speak. Speak and confess now before the one God, and may he repent your sins on the most holy day of dissension. I confess that I'm not sure what I'm doing for Sordland is enough. You do carry a heavy burden on your shoulders. What you have confessed is not a sin, but you may share your burden with me if you like. I'm trying to reform the country, but I don't know if the country is ready for it yet. Reformation is one of the tenets of Neurity, yet it must come slowly but surely. Anything else you would like to confess? I confess that I've been a bad husband. Family is a cornerstone of society. Under the watchful eyes of the God, men are required to protect their wives and family, but God created us as complex creatures. At times, conflicts rise among us. Tell me, what was your sin? I've been neglecting my family due to the stress of my position. If he's recording this, I'm not saying anything that could be taken as truly bad. Acknowledging where there have been issues, yes, but that makes you human. But saying anything too bad, that makes you in a very delicate position. Tragedy of neglect happens to all working men that feeds his family. Rejoice, God is kind in matters of family. Anything else you would like to confess? That's all for today. Before God, I thank you for sharing. You are now forgiven before God, Anton Rain. May you never sin again. I'm certainly not going to confess to bribing when he might be recording it. The sliding window closed, and the archpriest entered the confession chamber. For the confession to end, you must extinguish the candles representing each one of your virtues and vices. With this, the once burning sins connected to you are now smoke and then nothing. Extinguish the candles. One by one, extinguish the candles. Well done, Miss President. Let's move on to my quarters before the ceremony. He led me through the 1,000-year-old corridors to his office. The smell of dust and old tomes was in the air, along with the scent of burning incense, being prepared for the ceremony. Well then, please have a seat. The wooden chair next to him looked like it might turn to a dust at a single touch. I sat down gingerly, and was surprisingly sturdy. Are you ready for the ceremony? Absolutely. Very good to hear. He leaned back in his chair comfortably. I want to talk to you about something. I heard you decided on a new school curriculum and decided that creationism shall no longer be taught in Sordland schools. Needless to say, I and the rest of the church are outraged. The possibility that entire generations of school children will have their mind filled with nonsense about evolution, while failing to learn one of the main tenets of Neurity. It will hurt us for years to come. Religion doesn't belong in schools, just like it doesn't belong in my government's policies. Well, I was just a couple of knocks were heard from the door and a young boy came in. He bowed before the archpriest, then me, before letting us know that the ceremony was about to begin. We made our way downstairs, where the ceremony was already in progress. The choir sang angelically, as the archpriest took his position before the altar. When they finished their hymn, an expectant silence fell over the room. It was time for my part. Dad to walk, bowed, and approached the altar. Yep, scepter left, altar right. Kneel before the archpriest. The archpriest laid the sword on my shoulder. Touch the sword with your right hand. And hand the scepter to the disciples. The archpriest turned to them, handed me the sword. Oh. Oh. I'm not sure if I gave the... Wasn't it the sword going to the disciple? I don't recall. I got up and proceeded to my designated spot next to Lucian. He leaned over and whispered, "Unfortunately, I was not quite correct, sir." My eyes met the archpriest and he very slightly shook his head. The ceremony went on for another hour and a half. Yeah, I got either the scepter or the sword wrong. Finally, the noon bells chimed, marking the end of the cathedral service. As I walked outside, I heard scattered boos. A man in a workers' party of bloody ears shouted I was only here for the show, that I couldn't even bother to get the ceremony right. Others yelled in agreement. We should go before things get heated. We entered our cars and drove back to our suites in Dyer. Blasphemy or incompetence? Radical, we love you. Unbelievable, let alone leading a country. President Rain is not even able to lead a religious ceremony right. I wasn't leading it. As part of the Day of Dissension ceremonies, President Rain was in the act. Blah, blah, blah. It didn't say which one I got wrong. I'm rather curious, but never mind. In the end, it doesn't matter what I got wrong. I simply got something wrong. Alright, well, I guess we're losing the religious section as well. We're going to end it there for now, and come back probably tomorrow. You've been a fine audience. I've been Yorkie the Talespinner, and this has been Suzerain. Very well.